I can maybe watch reels on social media and all of a sudden it's an hour and I didn't even notice it. I thought that was 10 minutes and it was actually an hour. Social media is designed to suck you in and to kind of push your intuition down. So how long do you think is a good amount of time until you're feeling a little bit of regret from too long? How long do you think you feel at your best until you need a break from screen time?
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast, your trusted source for real-world tactics that keep students safe and help them to shine online. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. Each week, I sit down with K-12 superintendents, district leaders, and community voices who are shaping digital safety. We discuss wins, struggles, and strategies used to guide students so they can be safe and successful online. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Hi there, I'm Brenda Lewis. I'm the proud superintendent of Fridley Public Schools. We are located just outside of Minneapolis. We are a school district of about 2,800 students. We have 2 elementaries, a middle school, a high school, an early childhood center, and some Setting 4 programs. We are a district that has 80% of our students are students of color, and 72% of our students are living in poverty. Fun fact, I'm also a mom of 3 students in my district.
Superintendent, welcome. It's so good to have you here. How old are your kiddos, if you don't mind me asking?
Thank you so much. I have a soon-to-be 8th grader, and she is 13, a soon-to-be 10th grader, and she is 14, and a soon-to-be 11th grader, and he is 16.
It's welcome. You are living it and breathing it professionally, personally. It's exciting. I'm excited to have you on today because for all of our listeners, as they all know, we're all about keeping students and kids and teens safe so they can be successful someday. And what we mean by that, for all of our listeners, you've heard it from me, preaching it from the mountaintops for the last decade. How do we keep kids safe online so they can someday shine online? And shining online means they get that dream job, career, internship. They're at the age of 25, resilient students, resilient young professionals who know how to navigate these digital tools, the iPhone and Android that we might put in their hands so they can manage it carefully, professionally, and use it as a tool rather than just a pastime. And we're excited about that to discuss that today. Now, Superintendent, I want to get your advice on a few things. So I'm going to share some stories and I want to really dive into your insight. You probably started as a teacher. You then moved your way up to a principal, and then you are now superintendent. I'm going to call you chief executive of the school district. Actually, what kind of teacher did you start out as?
I was a first grade teacher.
That's great. Do you miss it?
I do. However, I consider myself a teacher at heart, and so much of the work of a superintendent is grounded back in that work as a teacher.
Do you get to go into the classroom from time to time?
I do. I go in to every site every month with our principals.
That's great. That's so important. I love that. All right. So my question, I want to start this off this way. Now we've got about 220 episodes or so of all of our amazing superintendents in 41 to 45 states. I think it's 45 states now. After these 200 plus superintendent conversations, we've heard a consistent trend. We're hearing that students are growing up in a digital world filled with powerful tech, AI, and social media. And maybe not every community is this way. Maybe some of our listeners, our superintendents who are listening, maybe they have perfect children in their community and no problems. If so, I want you to email me. I want to study your community and find out how amazing you are and really bottle that up and use it nationwide. But in some cases, many kids lack the maturity and guidance to use these tools safely. And I think that's normal. For some of our listeners, they're nodding their head going, yeah, it's difficult. The result in some cases is more student absences, lower focus, rising cyberbullying, declining self-esteem, and AI misuse in the classroom. But also, parents we're hearing are trying to raise good kids in a world they didn't grow up in, a world where now tech is moving way faster than safety policies. Teens know how to hide apps and online behavior, and also safety lessons can come after a crisis because we don't know what to protect from that could come up next week. Superintendent, I'd love your advice here. Are there any other trends on this topic that you have seen so we can alert other school districts before they see them?
Sure. I'm actually going to talk personal, local, and immediate to a situation that happened here in Fridley Public Schools that actually made national headlines. And this is from January. So we had to cancel school for 2 days in a row and after school activities for 3 afternoons because of threats. And what happened was we had one threat, and then we had people that were posting and reposting the threat. And what happened is our law enforcement partners, which we have fantastic law enforcement here in the city of Fridley, and they are the best of the best, but they were just getting drowned in all of these threats. And we were working with them. We were investigating the threats. We were letting the police do their role, the school district do their role. But what was happening is we were just having threat after threat. And in one day, what started out as one threat ended up as 12. And it just got to a place which was very escalated. And then I had been communicating with our community on a very regular basis. And in a communication, I put out and I said, families, we are experiencing threats being posted and reposted, and we're having a hard time with our law enforcement partners being able to keep up with these threats. And we don't know if they're the original threat, the reposted threat. Please talk to your children to stop doing these posts and the reposts. And I have to tell you, one student took my letter and snipped that part and said, really, Fridley Public Schools, do we have to have the superintendent tell us to stop this? And it stopped immediately. And our law enforcement partners were able to get to the bottom of it. But that's a real tried and true example, unfortunately, of how a threat situation escalated so quickly because of all these posting and reposting. And we just got to a place where when they stopped, our law enforcement partners were able to resolve it in a very quick fashion, and it stopped the reposting.
Yeah, that's really vulnerable of you to share, and I love that because I know that a lot of the superintendents and district leaders that are watching this are nodding their head. That's a normal outcome with these tools, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. For all of our listeners, whether you're a parent, whether you're a superintendent, or anyone in between, and we love you, guardians, there's no shame on this podcast. We're here to share the insights that, by the way, nationwide are the same. Every community says we're different. Yeah, but you probably have an iPhone or an Android in every kid's hands, or they're begging for it. And they all want TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Fortnite, and all those apps. So you kind of are accessing the same technology. And there's the same beautiful little angel of a kid who has dopamine hits they're getting off that. So while you may think, oh, our community's different, let's remember on a smart social national level, there's the same threats in every community, and our very vulnerable superintendent expert here right now has just been great about sharing what I bet a lot of the superintendents are going through right now. So we heard the story about there's lots of threats. We don't know how to source what the truth is. And then how do we get the kids to stop? One of the kids actually posted and said, does our superintendent really need to talk to the parents about locking this down? And then it stopped. What would your tips be to other districts to either, now that we've learned from it, to make sure this happens and it's cured quicker, or it never happens? Do you have a couple tips there?
Yeah. Well, my first tip is actually very simple. It's put that in the first letter to the community. Say, we need your help, families. Please don't post or repost these threats because it compromises the investigation. It compromises how quickly we can all get back to our routines and rituals. The second piece that I would like to share with superintendents is, in working with your law enforcement partners, they want you to get back to business as usual as quickly as possible. And so just work with them and really work with your families to understand and to keep them apprised of the situation. Here's where we are. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's where we need your help. I talked about in that thread, look for the helpers, as Fred Rogers always talked about. And there's helpers everywhere. And people want to help the school district. They want to do right by that. Sometimes you just have to tell them. So I think sharing initially, please don't post or repost this. And oftentimes when you tell people that, it takes the fun out of reposting it anyway. So then they stop right away. Our students stop. And then communicating very clearly about here's our present reality. And then really forward planning for when the students return. We met with our admin team along with law enforcement about how do we have a return to school that feels very normal? How do we ensure that our learning environments are there? What happened for us is we had the threat came in on a Tuesday, no school Wednesday, no school Thursday. Friday was an already scheduled no school day. Monday was a holiday. Then Tuesday, I had to cancel for wind chill factor. So we didn't go back to school till Wednesday. And we really took that time to provision how to have us back in. And if you didn't know we had been out for a week, you wouldn't have known we'd been out for a week. And our families and our students and our staff felt really welcome back in a very safe manner, and share those safety protocols as much as you can with your staff and your students and your families. And that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's You know, a lot of people say that their pain becomes someone else's path, and that's exactly what's happening here right now. We are a family of district leaders that are helping to protect the most vulnerable kids and families and guardians and everybody else to make sure we're safe on campus and at home. I think that's our number one goal. How do we promote that learning in the classroom? We call it being successful within the four walls of the class and the four walls at home, because we learn at home as well too a lot. I love that. Superintendent, thank you for sharing that story. I really appreciate that. Okay, I want to move on to a big question that we get for all of our audience. You know, we host 50 plus live events all year long. I used to be one of the top social media traveling social media safety people. A bomb threat in Kansas would happen, and a school district would call us and say, Josh, fly here and teach the kids how to fix this. Like, we don't want this anymore. We want kids to go to college, not cause threats. Same thing. And parents ask us a lot of these questions now that we do all this online. We do these distributed via Zoom and everything else. One of the biggest questions we get, our 2 million people we reach every year. Hey, Josh, what advice would you give a student to help them recognize some of the red flags of a dangerous stranger? Now, for all of our listeners, you've got the threats on campus of safety, but you've also got predators that want to chat with kids. You've also got just the simple apps are causing kids to get addicted. There's so many different threats that we need to not only dialogue about, but we just need to recognize, like, there's these cliffs that we can fall off of if we're not careful. So this question's a good one, but let's hear from a real student about how she might help a friend recognize these red flags. This is from one of our live events.
If I had a friend talking online to a stranger, I think that I would feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole situation. I would advise against it because so many indirect issues can come from that, and it could cause something to be worse than if they had just unadded them in the first place. Some red flags that I would have to advise them to cut it off with this person or to stop engaging would be if the person starts to get very involved in their personal life and they seem to be very intrigued in what's going on with them and wanting to know all little details about what they do and who they are, and just very personal details and things that you wouldn't normally share with a stranger in real life. If they're very persistent and constantly wanting to talk to my friend or constantly trying to be involved in their life or wanting to speak to them, I feel like that's kind of a red flag. Another thing would be if they ask them to ever meet them anywhere in person right from the start, if they feel a sense of being uncomfortable or their intuition is just saying it's wrong, or if my intuition is saying something feels wrong with this, then I think that's a major red flag.
So parents, remember, we host these 50 plus live events. And as you can see on the left side of the screen, there's weekly live parent events and replays. Remember, if your school district is a partner, please come on out to one of them. You're automatically entered for a chance. Not only are you going to protect your kiddos and your family, you're also entered for a chance to win a cool prize. We give away Kindles, 3D printers, and Bluetooth speakers every single week. Something fun for you at home that promotes either music or STEM education and reading. And also, a lot of parents are bringing their teens because there's a lot of teens that teach this program. There are student ambassadors that want to come in and protect. You can bring your teens and they'll learn a lot. They'll roll their eyes a lot less in our program than they will if you're preaching to them. And we love you, parents, but we want to make your job easier. We also give you a world-class premium parent newsletter every single week if you come to the event. Okay, so I want to dive in. Parents, also don't forget that on the front of smartsocial.com, if your district's a partner, we have the latest world-famous app guides on TikTok, parent guides on Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, Netflix, WhatsApp, 450 more in 12 plus languages. So if you speak English, Espanol, or Mandarin and 9 other languages, they're in your native language. And also, we've got these live events that are incredible. We've got AI for student success for back to school, the impact of screen time on motivation every single week, twice a week for back to school. We've got a lot of stuff. And then we've got some replays and some of the latest stuff. All right, so we're back over to our superintendent guest expert. My next question for you is really around some of the other community parent engagement questions I have for you that we've seen nationwide. So in addition to these 200 plus communities we've learned from, we've heard from these communities, and we're hearing that many parents feel overwhelmed trying to keep up with fast moving online trends and digital safety risks. And we're hearing that students are finding clever ways to increase their screen time and bend the rules, especially when the expectations at back to school will differ significantly from those at home, right? We're about to enter a huge transition. What trends, superintendent, or pain points are you seeing when it comes to parent engagement? And in addition to that, where do you feel families are struggling the most to stay informed or connected?
I think for me, it's really about, are we giving families the right information in the right format? So what I mean by that is, yes, we put out newsletters. Is email the most responsive way? We've changed that. We send out a text, And it used to just say a message from Fridley Public Schools. Well, for those of us that have children in multiple buildings, that got pretty confusing. So we've put out a text to link to the newsletter, and it'll say a message for all Fridley Middle School students or families. And I think what helps there is for us to be very responsive. We are no longer a district where everyone wants emails. Text is a much better way to put that out. Another area that we have is we put a lot out on our social media. We don't have a district TikTok or a district Snapchat, but we have a ton of users that interact with our Instagram, and that's actually followed by a lot of our students. And then we have a Facebook, which is followed by more of our parents. But that really helps for our families to get real-time information and also to see those celebrations. I think also another pain point is really how do we leverage technology as far as when it comes to interpreters. There's so many good platforms that have interpretation services, but when we're in a conference, is an in-person interpreter a better way to have that connection versus someone that's on a screen that we have that's an interpreter who is sometimes delivering some pretty personal information to our families? Is that best done through a screen when our families are in person with their teacher, or is that best done through an in-person interpreter? So those are just some pieces. Some trends that I see as well with parent engagement is just to have activities that we dovetail. So we'll have a student activity where you bring your students, we do a bingo night, there's popcorn. We have some pretty big prizes that we ask our community for so we can have some gift cards and things that are donated to us. And then we have those activities going on while sometimes we present with the students there, and other times we pull our families to talk about here's what our summer programming looks like, and here's what the benefits will be. Here's how you can work directly with your child when it comes to math. Here's some things you can do about digital literacy with your child. Another piece that we have is we have a lot of first generation students in our school district. So they have families that maybe grew up and immigrated from East or West Africa. And the divide is very different for our families. We have families who were raised overseas, now raising their children here. And our families share with us, like, I don't understand American schooling. So we really work on how do we do that? How do we bridge that gap so that our students still honor and appreciate their culture while our families can also be really heavily engaged in our school?
Yeah, that's an interesting balance, right? You talked a lot about interpreters, but language translation live in an event, which is not easy. And we take that to heart. It's a big deal. In addition, how do you make people feel comfortable, right? I mean, you have a good story of where that might have gone right or maybe wrong in the last 6 months or
I do. Yes. So we launched this Summer Rise program at our middle school last summer. And then this summer, we took the opportunity to really build on the successes that we had. And we also rolled it out to our elementaries and our info session and our recruitment night because we wanted every student to be there. We broke down the barriers of transportation, there was no cost, etc. And then we really reached out for certain students who we wanted to have what we call like a double tap, where not only did they get the district and the school-based communication on that, we had personal phone calls to talk about the importance of that. And when our families came that evening, we had live translators there. We also had a live Zoom with translation, and we also had it recorded. So if you wanted to hear the presentation in Hmong, instead of sitting in the back of the room and having someone whisper in your ear, there was literally a separate breakout space for Hmong, Somali, Spanish, and English. And then our families could live hear the presentation presented to them, translated, as well as if they were online, they could hear that too. And that really increased the engagement by having our families have that option to be tuned in online, really, really helped. And the recording. So just having that belonging of I'm here dignified where I'm receiving the translation. It's from a live person who knows and understands the content.
Yeah, so true. I was taking notes earlier because I get to learn from every superintendent. You asked the parents, don't post or repost the threat. I love that. And you said my favorite line from Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. I adore that because that's a positive outcome from difficult times. How can we build that inner circle of good people? And also, parents, look for the helpers and bring them close to you, right? They are you're part of that. I love that. And then just wrote some other information. You really said give parents the right information in the right format. The SMS is a great way. Right? I think it's like a 98% open rate within a day. Everybody opens text messages. And I love how you personalize that. I think for all of our other superintendents, email is a bit of like, they're not opening and they're not responding. It's because the district, the closer you get to the kiddo, I think we all agree, the closer you get to the kiddo, if the teacher was to send an email, parents would open it 100%. If the school, middle school, and send an email, a bigger, if the district sends it, comes from the superintendent, no offense, but a lot less people are going to know who the superintendent is unless they had you decades ago or a year, 2 years ago as a first grade teacher or something like that, right? So I think we've learned that. Is that about right? You try and get it at the school level whenever you can or lower?
Well, to your point, classroom and school level. And in fact, all of the communication that we have from my office actually comes through the school. So you wouldn't receive from me a message from the superintendent. You would get a message from the superintendent as part of your overall elementary message that you receive from either your classroom or your classroom teacher or from your principal.
Yeah, I love that. I think that keeps it really relevant for the parents. It's terrific. Okay, so for all of our listeners and viewers, we do these 50 plus live events. They're weekly, they're fun. Bring your kids. I want to give you a taste test of what these are, and I want to show you another teen piece of feedback that we have at our live events. This one is called The Sneaky Ways Video Apps Keep Teens Watching. We're going to understand the subtle ways video apps keep teens captivated and learn strategies to help them balance screen time. One of the biggest questions we get from parents, or millions of parents nationwide, is, Josh, what are the tips to help my teen manage their screen time? Well, rather than me answering that, let's hear from two high schoolers with tips on how you can talk to your teens on how to reset their screen time.
I just try to hold myself accountable about how much time I'm spending because you can get lost really easily. While you're doing it, you think 30-second videos, what's the harm in that? But then when you've launched 4 hours out of your day, you feel a lot of regret. Why would I spend 5 hours scrolling on this app before bed when I could have been getting more sleep or being more productive throughout my day? My mom, she always lets me know when I'm just dead scrolling on TikTok for hours. Like, she usually tells me how long it's been. You should probably get up and go do the things that you need to do. So besides holding yourself accountable, it's really helpful if you have a parent or someone that cares about you to hold you accountable for how much time you're losing on those video apps.
Some techniques I use to stop myself from getting sucked into social media is being very aware of why I'm on there, as well as understanding how it's addictive. Even though it can be fun to just sit on my phone and scroll or immerse myself in it, keeping in mind the things I need to do and setting aside the time to do that rather than falling into it like a trap.
So parents, sometimes this is overwhelming. The key takeaway is a rich dialogue with your kids is really the number one safety app in the world. Microsoft isn't going to call you in the middle of the night. Google, no offense to my friends at those big companies. Amazon won't contact you and go, we're afraid of your kid or afraid of where your kid's at. I want to give you parents some questions you can ask your teen to have an open conversation and help them evaluate the quality of their screen time. Every month is a different flavor. Let's talk about screen time now, especially with back to school. Couple questions or 5 questions you could probably ask your kids. Parents, take this with a grain of salt, maybe memorize one, make it your own, try it at the dinner table, or try it on the way to school or home from school in the car ride. Car ride's a cool pro tip. Okay, how do you feel after your screen time? Great question to ask kids, make it your own. Next, does that app or activity make you feel stronger or weaker after 1 hour? That's interesting. I feel weaker, stronger. Force them to think on their own. So they're doing their own math and they're like, actually, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting. What screen time activities or apps make you feel stronger? And parents, I know that you know this, but a lot of us, our strengths, we're really good at our weaknesses. Some would argue, some of the world's best authors would say, your weakness is something you could be good at, but at the end of an hour of that, you feel exhausted. But if you do 8 hours of a strength, you're probably just as good at it, or maybe not as good, but you feel motivated at the end of a day. You're like, wow, I feel good. I could do more. So asking your kids what screen time or activities make you feel stronger, really interesting way to tackle that. What activities might make you feel more focused and or relaxed, right? Gets the kids to think, well, interesting. Does 5 hours of TikTok do that? And how much time do you think is healthy, right? Having kids set those priorities. Superintendent, you were a teacher, a principal. Now you lead a large a large group of kids. What am I missing here? What is your advice? What are some dialogue starters you have for parents that you think that would help them open up a dialogue and a relationship with their kids around screen time?
Have you ever been in a situation where maybe something happened online and it made your stomach feel a certain kind of way? I think that really gets at the heart of our bodies, and our intuition are naturally designed to signal danger to us, right? And that shows up maybe through your stomach or maybe your breathing. Like your mind will tell you danger, danger, danger. And I think when you break it down that way, it's a way that's more like, I think you might have been engaging with someone that you shouldn't have been. That's not what that question gets at. That question is like, hey, has there ever been a time when maybe your stomach felt like a little bit yucky? And I would also say, like, I had this situation where I thought that I was getting an email or a text message about a toll that I needed to pay, and I almost paid the toll. And I found out that it was actually a scam. So those things happen to adults, they happen to me. And I'm just wondering if there's ever been a time when your stomach maybe signaled to you that the person you are interacting with or the content maybe made you feel like this isn't something I should be doing.
I love that vulnerability. And I think we all could agree that showing that vulnerability shows a kid, well, mom, dad, my teacher they don't have it all figured out. And they're showing me the pitfalls of what could have happened. Or maybe they did make a blunder and they're asking me, and now I feel comfortable because they're not preaching to me. I absolutely love that. Are there any other dialogue starters or techniques that you think parents could do to bridge that most important dialogue, the one between the trusted adult and the kiddo?
I think another question or a starter is, how long do you think you feel at your best until you need a break from screen time? For me, I find that I can maybe late at night watch reels on social media, and all of a sudden it's an hour and I didn't even notice it. And then I'm sad because now I only have 6 hours left to sleep. Is there a time when maybe like, oops, I thought that was 10 minutes and it was actually an hour? I think,
Mhm.
again, that just shows our kids, like, hey, I get caught in this. Social media is designed to suck you in and to kind of push your intuition down. So, how long do you think is a good amount of time until you're feeling like a little bit of regret from too long? And then I think talking about what are some strategies? Like, I set a goal for myself. I don't say no watching reels. I just say if I go to bed at 10 o'clock, I need to be off the reels and my phone put away and charging by 10:20.
I love that. We're talking a lot about screen time. I want to take a little diversion for all of our parents listening. I don't get paid by this company. In fact, I pay them. There's an app that as one of the leaders in the space, I have to admit, I'm addicted to frozen yogurt and screen time. Those are two, like, I love Froyo. And I have an app on my phone that keeps me from too much Instagram. And I want to show this to everybody. There's a lot of these out here. This is the one I've landed on that Smart Social supports. There's a few of them out there. This is called ClearSpace. Now, again, I don't get paid by them at all, but I have this on my phone and it's interesting. It eliminates compulsive phone use. Let me explain to everybody why I use it for myself. I think I pay them $30 to $40 a year. I can lock up some of my apps. You'll see down here, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I just do it for Instagram and Facebook. And what happens is I've set, when you open it, it forces you to take a deep breath. It says, take a deep breath in and out. It does a break in the addictive nature of opening the app. And then it says, all right, now that you've breathed in and out, how long do you want to spend on this app? Do you want to spend 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10, or 15? And I'll often click the 15. And then what happens is 1 minute before the 15 minutes is up, it opens the app for you. It says, warning, this app's about to close in 1 minute. It warns you. And then when it closes, you feel like, oh, okay, that's cool. So I'm only on Instagram for 5 to 15 minute intervals, and I can open it back up another 15. It's fine. It does have a feature that I've never used called how many push-ups do you want to do before you use the app? Or how many steps do you want to take, or jump rope, or deep breaths? You can do all these different things. It's silly and it's loved by a bunch of people. So I love this. Parents, consider something like this. What is going to be the answer to help your kids to better manage their own screen time? A dialogue is the starter. All right, Superintendent, you took time out of your busy day to join us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This has been just a delight. I appreciate being a guest, but more importantly, I appreciate the content as a mom too. It's just so helpful.
Thank you so much. For all of our listeners, we're here to keep kiddos safe and successful. And along the way, we want them only at the age of 16 to start using social media. There's no shame if they have it younger, but a phone earlier on is fine to track them, to talk with them, to text them. We understand, but let's try and wait a little longer. And we agree with Australia, the country Australia, who says, let's do 16 years old. A lot of states are moving that way. Let's hold off a little longer. I am your biggest fan. If your kids dislike you once a week because you took a little screen time away from them because you want them to be better at the age of 25 in the long run and more resilient and learning as much as they can in class, we are rooting for you. I've got my invisible pom-poms cheering for you as your cheerleader. Parents, one more thing. Remember that as you post online, to remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching and modeling the behavior you have online. I'm Josh Ochs, the founder of smartsocial.com. Thanks for watching this episode. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for spending time with the smartsocial.com podcast. If today's insights were useful, please share the episode with a fellow parent or educator and subscribe so you never miss our next conversation. And parents, make sure to join one of our next live online events each week to keep your family safe and also enter for a chance to win cool prizes. You can learn more at smartsocial.com. I'm your host, Josh Ochs, and parents, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching what you're doing online. I'll see you on the next episode.